Good morning, everyone. Today, Apriani and I will present our presentation, and the topic is about teaching speaking. Here, we have several contents. So, the first is reasons for teaching speaking. The second, speaking sequences discussion. The third is more speaking suggestions. The fourth, correcting speaking. And the last one is what teachers do during a speaking activity. So the next will explain by Apriani.
Okay, thank you for the time that has given to us. So as you heard already about the contents in this topic teaching speaking, I would like to give you explanation. Let us go first to the reasons for teaching or reasons for learning. So here we have several reasons. The first one is speaking activities provide rehearsal opportunities. So, in these activities, the learners, the teacher, and the students, they have more chances to practice their real life speaking in the safety classroom. Because the teaching speaking, it happened in the classroom. The second, the speaking task provide feedback for both teacher and students. Because in this task, the students they try to use any or all of the languages that they know. The third, the activate the various elements of language. So these reasons why we want to learn or why we want to teach it is because it can activate the various elements of language. It happened because during the activities in the speaking class, so the learners they record what they learned, what they heard from the speakers. They will keep it in their mind, in their brain. And another reason is speaking activities are designed to provoke speaking as a skill. So, in this reason, the activities can foster better speaking because rather than having students speak only to focus on or only to focus for the practice, but the specific language constructions. As with any sequence, however, we may use what happens in speaking activities as a focus for their future study, especially where the speaking activity throws up some language problems that subsequently need to fix. So, the teaching of speaking, it depends also on the classroom culture of speaking. So, the classroom need to become a talking classroom, which means that the students will be much more confident speakers and their speaking abilities will improve. The, the second content of the teaching speaking is speaking sequences. So, we will give some examples that can tell you the sequences of speaking. The first example is photography competition. So, in this activity, it will start by the students will work in groups. So they are told that they are going to be the judge of a photography competition in which all the images are men. So in these activities, the students have to discuss the criteria before they reach a final decision. They also have to be able to give reasons for their decisions. Okay, after see the pictures or the photography of those men, so they have to make a choice. They have to decide the criteria of their what they are going to use to make their own choice. Each group should come up with the 5 criteria. So, while they are discussing this, we can stipulate listening in the group's discussion, help them out of any difficulties if it is necessary. So, we will also make a note of any language problems you may want to study later in remedial exercises. After that, the students are then shown the 4 finalists for the competition. In their groups, they have to choose the winning photograph, but they cannot do this just on the basis of what they like best, but they have to use the criteria they have agreed. Once again, as a teacher, we cannot just stand in front of the class, but we have to go around to the groups. We have to pay attention on how the discussion is going. Finally, the groups have to report back on their choices and say exactly what they have chosen them. Which criteria make them choose one of the images. So, this can develop into a longer whole class discussion. In this activity, the students are active of all the languages they know to talk about something. They have a purpose for their speaking. And these activities also allows us to fit useful words into the discussion. At the same time, giving us a lot of examples of student language. We can use this later in the study sequences, where we both look at the same of the mistakes that the students made, and also help them to say things better or more appropriately. That's for the first example. Now let us move to the second example, which is role play. So, the teacher asked the students to become involved in stimulation and role plays. In simulations, the students act if they were in a real-life situations. We can ask them to simulate a check-in encounter in airport, for example, or we can ask them to act for a job interview or presentation to a conference. So the role play simulate the real world in the same kind of way, but the students are given particular roles. They are told who they are and often what they think about a certain subject. They have to speak and act from their new character's point of view. The teacher presents the class. For the another examples, you may see here for the role play explanation in the material that our lecturer has given it to us on LMS. Let us go to the third example for speaking sequences here, which is the portrait interview. So this portrait interview shows how portraits can be used to provoke questions and answers, which can help and develop into a very involved conversation. For example, here you can see in this picture on our slides, it is the Arnolfini marriage by Jan van Eyck, or a large version of the painting is projected onto a screen. So, when they look at the pictures, they may have some questions to ask. For example, how old are you? To the people in the portrait. For the next topic, it will be explained by Sister Teresa.
Okay. Next is about discussion. Discussion is one of speaking activity that used for answering question or for solve the problem from topic or term that have discussed. To increase your confidence in speaking, a discussion I'm sorry, to increase your confidence in speaking, a discussion can change your attitudes and ideas. A discussion can help a group make a particular decision or come to a conclusion. A discussion gives you the chance to hear the thoughts and ideas of other students. So in this activity, some students suddenly want to talk about something in a lesson, and discussion occurs spontaneously. So something we should remember is that people need time to assemble their thoughts before any discussion. After all, it is challenging to have to give immediate and articulate opinions in our own language, let alone in language we are struggling to learn. We can help students also in other ways. We can, for example, give them cards containing brief statements of arguments about the topic, or we can make the discussion the end of the lengthier process. We can get students to rewrite statements so that they represent the group's opinion, and when students are speaking, we can help them and encourage them by suggesting things they can say in order to pass the discussion along. The next is about more speaking suggestions. In this part, we will see the first is about information gap activities. In this part, two speakers have different information, and they will complete the whole picture by sharing that information. So one popular information gap activities is called describe and draw. In this activity, one student has picture which they must not show their partner. The teachers sometimes like to use surrealist paintings, empty doorways on beaches, trains coming out, or fireplaces, and etc. So all the partner has to do is draw the picture without looking at the original. So the one with the picture will give instruction, and then the other student will draw it. The second is about telling stories. We spend a lot of our time telling other people's stories and anecdotes about what happened to us and other people. So the student need to be able to tell stories in English. So the teacher can give the chance for children to tell about the stories that they like. For example, the teacher can ask them to tell about a fable or legend, and then the teacher may ask them also to tell the story about their daily activity. The teacher also can alternatively give students some object like pictures, and then in groups they have to invent a story which connects the object. And then we can encourage students to retell stories which they have read in their books or found in newspaper or internet. So they may tell the stories about what they are already read, and they can tell it in front of their classmates. The next is about favorite object. In this activity, the teacher can ask the student to tell their favorite object like toys, picture, or clothes. So they will think about why they got them, and what they do with them, why they are so important to them, and whether there are any, and then why they got them. And then in groups, they then tell each other about their object, and the groups tell the class about which was the most interesting in their group. The next is about student presentation. In this activity, individual student give a talk on a given topic or person. In order for this to work for the individual, time must be given for the students to gather information and structure it accordingly. We may want to offer models to help individuals to do this. The student listening to presentation must be given some kind of listening task too, including perhaps giving feedback. The next will explain by Apriyani.
So let us now see about the correcting speaking. So this correcting speaking will probably be necessary for teachers to correct the mistakes made during the speaking activities in a different way from those made during a study exercise. So this will happen when the students are repeating sentences, trying to get their pronunciation exactly right. Then the teacher will often correct appropriately every time there is problem. But if the same teachers did this while students were involved in a passionate discussion about whether smoking should be banned on tourist beaches, for example, the effect might well be to destroy the conversational flow. If just at that moment one of the students is making an important point, the teacher says, "Wait, you said is, but it should be are. Beaches are," repeat. So the point will quickly lost. Remember that the constant interruption from the teacher will destroy the purpose of the speaking activity. So many teachers, they watch and listen while speaking activities are taking place. They note down things that seem to go well and times when students wouldn't make themselves understood or made important mistakes. So when the activity has finished, then they ask the students how they thought it went before giving their own feedback. So they may say that they like the way the student A said this, and the way student B was able to disagree with her. They will then say that they did hear one or two mistakes, and they can either discuss them with the class, write them down on the board, or give them individually to the students concerned. In each case, they will ask the student to see if they can identify the problem and correct it. So, this is for me, and I think also for all of us in the class, we experience this kind of correcting speaking with Mr. Danny. So, when we are presenting or when we are speak in front of the class, he will not interrupt us or he will not correct you directly on that time when you make the mistakes. But I noticed that he would just listen to you, watching you, pay more attention to you, and then if there is mistakes or there is some important things that he needs to take note, so he would take note about it. And then after the class, he would ask the audience or ask the class to give the feedback or give some correction about the presentation that has done. And he also asked the presenters about how they think or if there is this problem or there is some mistakes. That our lecture, he will give his own feedback, and all the feedbacks for me is all the construction feedback, which is can help the students to improve their skills. As with any kind of correction, it is important to see if they can identify the problem and correct it. The students also, if they can give their criticism. So many teachers will deal with the mistakes they heard about saying who was responsible for them. And of course, there are no hard and fast rules about correcting. Some teachers who have a good relationship with their students can intervene appropriately during the speaking activity. So perhaps the best way of correcting speaking activities appropriately is to talk to the students about it. So you can ask them how and when they would prefer to be corrected. You can explain how you intend to correct during these stages and show them how different activities may mean different corrections behavior on your part. The next slide will be presented by Sister Teresa.
Okay, the next is about what teachers do during a speaking activity. Some teachers get very involved with their students during a speaking activity and when to participate in the activity themselves. They may argue forcefully in a discussion or get fascinated by a role play and start playing themselves. There's nothing wrong with teachers getting involved, of course, provided they don't start to dominate. Although it is probably better to stand back so that you can watch and listen to what's going on. So the teacher here better to when the student present their presentation, the teacher maybe will stand at the back of the of the student and listen. So after that, after finish the discussion or presentation, the teacher can give them the feedback. Sometimes, however, teachers will have to intervene in some way if the activity is not going smoothly. If someone in a role play cannot think of what to say, or if a discussion begins to dry up, the teacher will have to decide if the activity should be stopped because the topic has run out of steam, or if careful prompting can get it going again. That's where the teacher may make a point in a discussion or quickly take on a role to push a role play forward. Prompting is often necessary, but as with correction, teachers should do it sympathetically and sensitively. So that's all about our presentation. Thank you for your listening,
And if you have any question or feedback regarding our presentation about this topic, you may share your feedback discussion form on the LMS which prepared already by our lecture. So you may share it there. Or if you don't mind, you may share your comment or your feedback, your opinion on our YouTube channel. Thank you.